Good morning, everyone. It's great to have you here. For those of you that attend our monthly breakfast series on a regular occasion, you'll notice that the setup's a little bit different. We actually sold out this morning's session, so lots of interest in terms of talent and acquisition. So we're really pleased to have you all here this morning for this topic. Before we start, I just want to provide a land acknowledgement. And so we do recognize that we are standing on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We acknowledge that Ontario is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. I also want to acknowledge that we have, well, you're all special guests, but we have a couple of special guests with us here this morning. So on Monday evening, I actually had the opportunity to have dinner with a couple of representatives, Eric and Stephanie. Eric and Stephanie, where are you guys? They're at the back. Okay, stand up so people can see you. Eric and Stephanie are at the back there. So Eric and Stephanie are from the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists. They host a conference every year, usually in October, is it? And this year, I believe it's in Salt Lake City. They're here in Toronto, scoping out Toronto as a potential site for their 2028 conference. So please say hi during the network session and tell them what a great city we have. Certainly much, much better than Salt Lake City. So you're going to be upgrading. For sure, for sure. Sorry for anybody from Salt Lake City. So please do say hi. I also want to say thank you to our sponsors for today's event. So Marsh for graciously hosting us in their offices, and Northeastern University, who's sponsoring today's session. And you would notice that they had some fantastic swag out on our registration desk. So thanks for providing the water bottles. If you haven't grabbed one, you can grab one on your way out. All right. It is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's session. So Simone Roche is now the commercial coordinator for Lactation Ophthalmics. Congratulations, Simone, on your new employment. But we first met Simone. She was a recipient of one of our LSO scholarship awards. And for those of you that don't know about our scholarship program, this is a program that is fully funded through our membership. So our members donate funds to support typically from 30 to 35 students a year, $3,000 each for undergraduates in their last program and their last year of their undergraduate or college diploma program. And along with the financial award comes a mentorship opportunity with one of the sponsoring companies. And so Simone was a recipient of that award, and she became an ambassador for Life Science Ontario. One of the things we heard from students was they loved the mentorship program, but they really wanted to interact with students that were recent graduates, people of their own age. And Simone has really stepped up to take on that role and engaging with the community. And we're really pleased to have her here today to moderate this session. So Simone, I'm going to pass it over to you. Should leave that on.
Thank you so much, Jason, and good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us at another LSO Breakfast Series. Today, we're excited to deep dive into the talent acquisition and development process within the life sciences sector. We hope to explore some of the trends in cultivating and retaining talent for the sector's growth and learn about strategies to build a resilient and dynamic workforce. My name is Simone, as Jason mentioned, and I'm a Queen's University Life Science graduate and previous LSO scholarship recipient. I'm excited to be joined today by four great panelists who each bring a wealth of knowledge and experience in the field. Joined by us today, we have Angelina Brathwaite, the Director of Strategic Client Engagement Life Sciences, Leader of Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging North America with Brunel. We have Joan Jordan, the Business Development and Partnerships at BioTalent Canada, Katie Grace, Director of People and Culture at Vive Crop Protection, and Angela Code, Talent Acquisition Leader. So I was thinking we could start with some introductions. Maybe each panelist can tell us a little bit about your background, your organization, and what the sector looks like from your perspective today.
I guess I'll go first, since I'm beside you. Thanks, Simone. So I have a diverse background that got me here into the world of biotechnology. I think you either have one background where you knew exactly where you wanted to go and another one where you just kind of find yourself here. So I decided last night that all roads lead to bio in my mind. But I started in banking, then I made humans, then I became a consultant, then I became an event planner, then I went into fundraising, and then I went into marketing, and then I was in TV, and then I'm in bio. So I know, all roads lead to bio. But with BioTalent Canada, what I learned also was that I was a STEM grad, which I didn't really realize was a thing until I got to BioTalent Canada, because I did graduate from Queen's with a degree in mathematics. And when I realized on some of my tours I did with BioTalent Canada, I went to a laboratory and I realized, wow, I could have used my degree for good rather than evil in banking and been a biostatistician as an example. So again, all roads do lead to bio. But talking about the sector, just a few quick stats. I won't bore everybody. As a statistician, I like these kinds of numbers. But we do know from labor market intelligence that the industry is thriving, but also just surviving, because we have a shortage of 65,000 jobs is projected by 2029, of which 14,000 of those jobs are in the GTA. For other statistics that we can probably get into later when I'm talking with the ladies, is there's a lack of skills, transferable skills, basic skills, problem solving, communication, and getting your way into the sector is a big challenge for both employers to attract talent and for talent to get into the jobs that they're looking for. So just a quick background, and I'll pass over to Angelina.
Okay, is this on? I guess it is. Good morning, everybody. And LSO, I just want to thank you for the opportunity for this panel. I'm very passionate about talent staffing because I work for a global staffing and recruitment agency called Brunel. I've been there for 18 years. I know it sounds like a very long time, but that's because it is. I enjoy what I do, so I'm very, very fortunate. And I didn't realize we had so many things that we align on. So prior to working in the staffing industry, I too did some television work. I actually did crime for City TV back in the 90s and did some magazine format shows with women's television. And I also sold insurance. Yeah. On top of that, I worked for the Royal Bank for quite some time, where I started off as a teller when I was a kid, and then did some lending, so mortgages and boat loans and horse loans and all kinds of stuff. So it's been a journey, and it's been a wonderful journey. And one thing you will learn today, especially those who are younger in your career, is that you have so many transferable skills. Some of you are so intimidated, but trust me, you are incredible. You have the education, but on top of the education, you have discipline, leadership skills, all those things, collaboration. So we'll talk about that a little later on, but it's important for you to know that. And in terms of industry trends, what we're seeing right now, specifically with our clients in pharma and biotech, is that they are really concerned about the wellness of their employees. That's top of mind. And we always talk about patient experience, but they're also now, what's important for the journey for the employee. So those are some of the things that we're going to touch upon. And Katie, or should I throw it over to you, Ange?
Sure. Thank you, Angelina. Thank you. And hi, everyone. My apologies for not being able to be there this morning to meet all of you in person. But I do want to just reiterate what Angelina had said. Many of you are earlier in your careers. You have lots of transferable skills, and things are going to happen for you. Not dissimilar to Joanne and Angelina. My career started in banking. I actually worked at a credit union as a teller. And that was in Vancouver. Whenever I moved into Toronto, I never thought of going to an employment agency to help me find a job, but that's what I did, and they actually hired me there. And so I got to know the ins and outs of sort of the temporary and executive search side of the business before deciding that I really wanted to see how the journey from a candidate to an employee and see what the difference was and make a difference there. So I moved out of the executive search into internal and started working in the finance industry doing recruitment, and then transitioned into generic pharma and then branded pharma, working at both Teva and AstraZeneca, hiring for positions across the life sciences space for pharmaceutical manufacturing, analytical chemistry, R&D, to moving into more the commercial side of the business of sales and marketing, market access, and what have you. And so, as Angelina had said, lots and lots of transferable skills. I've had the opportunity to build partnerships with BioTalent Canada. We've taken people out of the Queen's organization and with Joanne's support through BioTalent, and then also working with Angelina and the Brunel side for executive search and other search at companies that I've been involved with. So very, very happy to be here today and provide any insight I can on recruitment and retention within the life science industry. So thank you very much for having me. And I'll pass it over. Go ahead, Katie.
Awesome, cool, thank you. And so I'm Katie Grace. I am the Director of People and Culture at Vive Crop Protection. For those that don't know, Vive is a crop protection technology company focused on making synthetic and biological active ingredients better using our allosperse nanopolymer delivery system. Prior to joining Vive in January of 2002, I held several roles back in various industries. I did not start in banking like the rest of these ladies. I actually started my career very young working at McDonald's and grew my way up to a general management role. Before leaving, I studied human resources back in school and knew that I wanted to grow my career supporting organizations to bring on great talent and do great things. So I actually joined Cineplex and opened the rec room just across the street from us. So lots of hiring there to get that place all staffed up and ready to open, and have had different roles in like green energy organizations. And then prior to joining Vive, I was with Revlon. So some very different industries. As we've all spoke to, skills are very transferable across organizations, across roles, across industries. So yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for sharing a little bit about your background. So I was thinking that we could start the discussion at the very beginning of the hiring process regarding, talent acquisition. So Joan, why don't you tell us a little bit about the programs that are out there to help support organizations in the hiring process?
My pleasure. So with BioTalent Canada and with our friends with LSO, what you hear most often is the struggle is access to talent and access to capital. So one of the programs we have with BioTalent Canada is sort of a solver for both, in that we offer wage subsidies. And it could be wage subsidies for students entering into the market. And I think Simone mentioned she was a participant in one of those subsidies. And as Angela said, a lot of the team at AstraZeneca has participated in wage subsidies. So that is a bit of a Band-Aid fix because it's easy to fix things with money, as bankers know. But that just gets the foot in the door because it gives the student or talent, depending on the wage subsidy, the opportunity to have on-the-job training, work integrated learning, however you want to label it. They're getting their foot in the door to get experience because you can't get a job without experience. You need experience to get a job. Anybody with kids knows that. And then with the wage subsidy, it also offers the employer a little bit of an incentive to not just hire that person, but also to shape the future of your workforce because it's scary. Most of those organizations are small to medium enterprises. There are 2 to 10 people. They don't have any human resources. So to have access to some funding takes a little bit of that risk bite off of the situation. So with BioTalent Canada, as an example, just one of the delivery agents, we have wage subsidies for students. We have wage subsidies focused on digital skills, on a green environment, newcomer wage subsidies, youth, depending on what the situation is. You can definitely reach out to us and other organizations who are delivery agents, but also training, because we've talked about transferable skills. So we have developed different sets of courses. Some cover those essential skills. So things like problem solving, communication, collaboration, reading, writing, numeracy, which sound very, very basic, but they were designed by industry because industry said these students, as an example, coming up the ranks from our Canadian universities and colleges are great academics, but don't have those skills to be on the job ready. And those small to medium enterprises need that kind of shift in that talent. So 2 great programs, like I said, wage subsidies and training programs. It can be just that first step to get those individuals in the door and that little bit of pressure relief for those employers.
Thank you for sharing a little bit about, the programs at BioTalent and how they're able to bridge that gap. I think that that's super important. And from my personal experience, I really enjoyed working with BioTalent. So now I'm going to open the questions up to all of our panelists. So in the competitive landscape of the life sciences industry, what innovative strategies do successful organizations employ to attract top-tier talent with diverse skill sets and experiences?
Excuse me, I'll answer piece of this question because I know, all of us have a lot to share. But I think career development opportunities, Angela Code and I have had an opportunity to collaborate a lot. And when employees are looking for opportunities, they're not just looking at what's available for me today, but what can I do moving forward in a few years. And from a client perspective or an employer perspective, they need to take in consideration succession planning. I remember, I won't say how long ago it was, but it was a long time ago, and clinical research monitors were retiring. Guess what? The other people who were younger in their career were not trained up. So it's really important for organizations to have a career development opportunities. But it's also your own responsibility as the employee to make sure you ask for what you need. Because what has happened in the past, people used to wait to be tapped on the shoulder, and that doesn't happen anymore. You have to be very strategic with your own career goals. So ensure that when you're speaking to your manager or when you're asking for a mentor, that you set clear goals and objectives on how to achieve them, because it's really critical. So that would be my advice, is to manage your own career development with the support of a mentor, a coach. Does that make sense? Yeah? You want to add something, Katie?
Yeah, I was going to go in a really different direction. I mean, but that's great. No, I think in my opinion, top tier talent, as you said, really comes down to making sure that you're aligned with the mission and values of the organization. I think you can have all the right skills and all the right experience for a role, but if you are not passionate about what you are doing with that organization and what you are doing in that role, if you don't have clarity on how what you're doing in your role contributes to the overall goals of the organization, there's a mismatch there, and it's a bad experience. So one thing that we did at Vive, I can say I supported the leadership team. We identified what are some of, based on our values and our purpose, what are some key skills, experiences, personality traits of someone who would come in and align with what we're looking for. And so then we took that and we developed, as part of our recruitment process, questions to screen to make sure that as we are hiring for new roles, bringing on new talent, that they do meet some of those traits that will make them successful in their role in the organization. So, yeah.
I was just going to bridge the gap on that one. So what's interesting is we have a lot of conversations throughout the day, throughout the week with employers and with talent. And we hear from employers, there's no talent. We're looking for talent. There's nobody out there. We can't hire anybody. And I also hear from talent and students especially, there's no jobs. There's no jobs out there. I can't get anything. And I always wonder myself, what is going on? What is the lack of communication? But you're exactly right. Sometimes it is a case of employers doing some research and finding out what talent are looking for in their organization, creating some employee resources groups, doing that kind of homework, creating their values. But at the same time, the talent needs to look into what is that, look on their website, do that research. And so when they're making those applications to the jobs, to bridge that gap and do that extra little bit of homework that could be, I could have a wage subsidy. I noticed you value X. I worked for this. I have a suggestion for a project. And a lot of employers say they are looking for those key things in even just an application process.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that too, I agree with what Angelina had said about having a mentor. And I would say don't just have one, have several. Everyone is going to provide different context to you in different conversations. They're going to give you different answers. And whenever you pull it all together, you'll probably have a clearer picture or more color in your picture on your how that you're going to go about things. I also do agree with Katie, having passion for the organization that you're in is important. But I would put another layer of that as far as from an attraction standpoint, it's what companies do for their internal employees for their own development, for their own retention, because it's those retention stories that are so key. And as a newcomer into the industry or into an organization, my recommendation for you is to be open. You may feel that you have all of the qualifications for a role and you're ready for your next level, but the team may feel that it would be best to do a lateral move versus a vertical move. And I would encourage everyone to consider their career as like kind of going around a mountain or around a pylon, even though the role that you're moving into might be at the same career level or the same salary level even. That role will probably give you some fundamental skills that you need that you don't have today, or will finesse some of the skills that you think you have today to be even stronger for the next step up. And so I would definitely encourage people to do that. And from those stories, that's where employers get their success stories for employee testimonials that really impact their brand in the external market. Whether it's a Glassdoor rating or a LinkedIn employee testimonial, that's what will engage external talent to join your organization, in employees feeling that they've been taken care of, they've been heard for their own development, and they really are great ways to attract talent within the industry today.
I think that some great points were made there, just in terms of how do we address the gap in current career development, as well as the work that needs to be done on both sides, from the students entering the industry and the employers looking to attract these students. So thank you all for sharing your insights on that. My next question is, how do life science companies balance attracting experienced talent versus cultivating the next generation of scientists and researchers? And what initiatives are in place to support the mentorship and development of emerging professionals in industry?
Okay, I'll be the first one to respond. There's quite a few things that we're seeing our clients do at Brunel, and one of them is partnering with Life Science Ontario and BioTalent. I think it's critical that we have these spaces where there's an opportunity for engagement, from a networking opportunity, from a teaching opportunity, from a learning opportunity. So I think that's imperative. One thing, and I know I keep reverting back to Angela Code, we talk about internship and co-op programs, but we also have to keep in mind those who are in high school. They have a tendency to be ignored, and some of them don't even have the opportunity to even experience university because they don't have the financial resources to support them. I'm an advisor for an organization called the MindX program, and basically it helps primarily those who are new to Canada, help the students navigate on how to obtain student loans and sponsorship, because it's really, really, really challenging. So I know Angela and I have had that conversation. It's like, how do you move the needle, especially if people aren't in a position to financially support themselves? So I think that's something that employers can also help with, is that engagement at the high school level, not just university. Continued education and training. Companies continue to invest in those by providing workshops, seminars, and access to online courses. Again, these online courses are something that you need to do. You have to be accountable for your own growth, not just rely on the employer to do that for you. And I would say diversity, inclusion initiatives to ensure that mentorship and development programs are accessible to all individuals. And I think we'll get into the idea conversation later on, but it's certainly, you know, a practice that is helpful. So those are some of my key points that I wanted to share.
Thanks for taking that first one. I didn't want to get into the politics of some of the challenges, right? But it is exactly that. Sometimes it can be as straightforward as an internship, whether it is for the homegrown talent or for newcomer talent, to offer those kinds of positions short term. You can access the creativity and knowledge that those individuals have and can bring to your workforce. And I know that with the student replacement program, although that's not newcomer specific, it is specific to our homegrown talent. It has more than doubled in the past couple of years. So, you know, one of the offshoots of the pandemic is that these kinds of work integrated learning opportunities are very common. It used to be very specific just to co-op programs at our post-secondary institutions. But now we're seeing students taking the initiative to get those summer jobs at those organizations and taking advantage of internships and getting that kind of experience. So being open to those transferable skills and being open, I think is what Angela said, to any kind of opportunity, whether you're on the talent side or on the employer side, take that risk and take that short-term co-op internship position. There's lots of different kinds of programs to support them, whether it's a project through MyTax or a wage subsidy, as an example, through BioTalent Canada. There's often training courses available that can come along with those kinds of co-ops, and that just sort of bridges that gap in advance, and you're looking to the future as opposed to the immediate right now problem.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that was said here, you know, especially what Angela said about sort of the economics of education. Education is a privilege, and I think that sometimes we forget that that not everyone can afford to be there. But I think not just the affordability of it is like, how do we provide the mentorship? Because not everyone comes with a support structure. They don't have even their sort of family mentors that can help them. You know, their parents may not work in the life science industry, for instance, and so they may not know how to advocate for it or how to help someone who's trying to get into the life science organization or life science industry to sort of bridge that. Because, you know, many people find jobs based on who they know and through networking. And your parents, with sort of the early careers, play a big part, and not everyone has their parents or family members that can help them with that networking. So I think as talent looking for roles, find ways to network, which is attending events such as this through Life Sciences Ontario and other industry events, and don't be afraid to reach out directly to people at companies to try to start to build a relationship. But but I think also further, one of the things that AstraZeneca did was they actually worked with universities directly to help build programs. They were part of University of Toronto's MBiotech program and building digital health technologies sort of branching program, because it became evident that within the digital health space, there would be an emerging need for talent. And so that's something that organizations can do. They can be more proactive in working with the universities and the schools. I also, one of the things that we did at AstraZeneca was we did not just recruit from one program, we recruited from several programs to try to bring more diverse kind of mindsets and skills into the organization, so that you know, we just had more sustainability in the future and not just a like mindset. Some of our business teams, they made the decision that they would hire from one program for their internships. You know, each semester it would be a different program instead of always the same program. So I think that's something else that is very, very helpful, because that knowledge then is just, it's a ripple effect. You know, the student that comes to work for us, they're going to go back to their program, they're going to share what they learned, and maybe help others get more of a different mindset. And then further, as far as building that, is just hosting coffee chats internally once the interns are in the organization, coffee chats with key leaders, as well as industry spotlight sessions, because within the life science sector, there are so many different jobs than we know about. And so you may not know what a job title actually means or what a role means. Like for instance, market access, you learn a little bit about it maybe through programming, maybe not at all, especially if you've just been a master of science and chemistry. Chances are you don't learn about market access. But without market access, there's no pharmaceutical, basically. We can get a drug product approved through Health Canada, but if it's not approved by the payers, the product may not have a life in Canada. So there's so many different roles within the industry that I would explore them all, reach out from a networking perspective and learn more. And don't be afraid to apply, because as we said earlier, many of you have a lot of transferable skills, and not all employers are great at writing job postings. So I say apply anyways, and don't get discouraged if you get a decline email. Just keep going.
Can I just add to that? So Angela, you made a really, really good point there, is a lot of the job titles and a lot of the school programs today won't be necessary 10, 12 years from now, right? They don't even exist. The jobs don't exist that we're going to need then. So you have to really keep an open mind. And that's when I said earlier about the employers say there's no talent and the talent says there's no jobs. That's one very, very key point that I keep reminding every employer and every talent that I speak with is just keep uncovering that rock. Just keep looking and keep searching, because there's so much more out there available. The skills that you have may not be written just like that, and that employer might be looking for somebody just like them. But if you can illustrate to them, if you can communicate effectively what you're looking for in a skill employer, and if you can communicate what your skills are, talent, to that employer, that's going to bridge the gap in a way that's never been seen before.
I just want to take a moment to really echo the point about partnerships and, having them as an opportunity for engagement. I know in my working through the LSO mentorship program, beyond the knowledge that I gained through that program, as Angela was saying, there is an element of support and guidance. And also, as you talked about it, it's a great opportunity to know what's out there. I definitely feel like I did not have a holistic understanding of the roles that are on kind of like the commercial and the medical sides of pharma. So having students in those programs, exposing them to what's out there, because it's not necessarily shown, through our academic journey, I think is great. And I think everyone made super good points about that. So my next question is, do recommendations from current employees play a role in recruitment? And how do you recognize those employees?
I'm happy to take that one. We actually did just introduce a referral program at Vive. We were doing some pretty big scaling, and who better to bring in top talent than your fabulous employees? And so in order to recognize and appreciate those employees for what they are doing, going out, promoting the company, scouring their networks to bring in some talent, we have paid out referral bonuses. I think since introducing it maybe just over a year ago, we've paid out 5 or 6 referral bonuses so far. So programs like that are definitely beneficial.
At Brunel, we've done something very similar. We have contracting programs, and so we rely on those who are outsourced to provide referrals, and they too are financially compensated very nicely. It's a win-win for everybody. I think referrals are also good from a diversity perspective because people know individuals, sometimes outside of the organization, to the point that was raised before. You could work in banking and still transfer those skills over into our industry, or you could work in engineering with, PwC or whoever, and then transfer it over into our industry sector as well. So just leveraging referrals through those mediums. Is there anything different that you did at Astra or at BioTalent, or is it similar?
No, it's just there's a lot of value in that, because of course it's not just the science people that are going to come to the science jobs. You don't need a science background to be able to sell a scientific product necessarily. You can get some transferable skills for that. I think that's where a lot of the gaps can happen as well. When the employer is putting out a job description, you're looking for somebody with science background or X number of this. Well, really, you're just in sales. Not poo-pooing on that, I'm in sales too. But you can learn those skills no poo-poo. But that's also something that comes into play when it comes to employee referrals, is because you're going to need the accountants, you're going to need the other people, and that comes up with the student replacement program. Is every pharmaceutical organization or every other organization needs other people than the people who are creating. So things to think about.
Same old.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and I would mirror everything that everyone has said. The great thing about employee referrals is that you're generally referring someone as an employee that you want to work with. So if you're bringing, sort of a plus one, which is what the employee referral program was at AstraZeneca, if you're bringing a plus one, for instance, to a wedding, you're going to bring someone who is going to show you in a good light, probably, and
I don't know, Ange, I've had some plus ones. They're at a 0 right now.
Okay. But generally you're going to bring someone into the company that you would want to work with, that you're going to vouch for. And what's great about the person who's being referred is that they already have that level of trust within the organization as well, because their friend or relative or previous, a student or someone they went to school with, they already have that trust in that person too. So it really helps bridge that. And not only that, employee referrals, especially if you, from attracting talent, were to run like a social media campaign and challenge employees to see who can get the most views of a post or most applications from a post that they shared on LinkedIn that is really a testimonial, and then give them just an award, such as maybe, dinner with the president one day. It can really do a lot to, help amplify the brand and build trust within the talent community. So I think employee referral programs are key to attracting talent.
I think those are some great insights, and I think at the basis of the internal referral programs is the importance of networking and who you know and how to build those connections. So I think that, even events like today are a very great opportunity to do that. So now that we've explored kind of the talent attraction side, let's delve into how we can retain the talent in the sector long term. So in addressing the unique challenges of talent retention, what retention strategies and employee development programs have demonstrated success in keeping high-performing individuals engaged and committed long term?
Well, one thing I've seen on that specific topic is knowing your audience, knowing your future audience. And I just have one quick example for that. Is we were speaking with an employer, and they had developed a bunch of different employee resources groups. And I know we might talk about, where the gaps are, for instance, in Indigenous or women or that sort of factors. But this employer had developed, I think, 14 different employee resources groups. One of them was for Indigenous, and they did not have a single Indigenous person at their establishment. So they were ready. They were preparing in advance. And that stuck with me for the past 2 years. It was over 2 years ago that they mentioned this. And I thought that's a fantastic way to look forward, right? Because the pendulum swings so very quickly to, is it an employer market or a talent market? And that shifts so quickly that you need to be ready on the employer side to attract that talent. And then you can go on into the free breakfasts and lunches and skateboard parks. But to start off with, you need to be prepared for that diversity that we need to have in our employers.
In my opinion, retention starts really early with the recruitment and onboarding phase. So just making sure that as you're going through those processes, you have effective processes in place. It's an engaging and enjoying experience for the employee. And when they're onboarding, they understand the role within the organization, because ultimately that's, you need to know what you're doing and how you're contributing. And then I think just pulsing employees, we do an engagement survey to understand what are some of those gaps, and showing that you're actually listening to the employees and addressing any concerns, I think is very important for engagement.
I think what's critical and what I've been hearing from our clients and from our candidates is that they're looking for feedback. It's very important to have that constructed conversation, so you know where you are today and where you want to go tomorrow. So I think that will help employees understand what their contribution is and where, if they have a specific goal, where they need to go. I have one client who the contracting group, their primary responsibility is pharmacovigilance. And it could be very routine, kind of, same old for some of them. This is their perspective, not mine. I've never been a pharmacovigilance person, but they like to be engaged in innovative projects. So if you can engage them in different types of projects, the focus would be their primary role, but also giving them opportunity to work outside of that scope might be something. Employee wellness programs, since COVID, it's very critical that we have programs that are going to support our mental wellness, never mind just our physical wellness. So those are some of the things that I've been experiencing with our clients.
Angelina, you jumped to my next point. How do you feel that the approach to employee retention and engagement has changed since COVID-19?
Well, this is my favorite, is I want to work from home. I want to work from home. I want to work from home. We're seeing a shift. Again, this is from the client perspective. They truly want to see people in the office, a hybrid model, because they feel it's imperative for that collaboration piece. Personally, I would tend to agree, but there's some jobs where you can work remotely 100%, but the engagement needs to be a little different. We have some individuals that are on my team, and they are in Montreal, or they're in Vancouver, or in Newfoundland. So you have to find different ways of engagement to ensure that they're comfortable, that they're participating. And so you have to have the proper virtual tools, and maybe having some site visits periodically to make sure that they're engaged. Yeah.
But your talent pool has opened up so much, right? So because of COVID-19, yes, we all want to work from home. I like it too. But you can hire students. I know, I think it was Angela who said earlier, you're looking at different schools and different programs. So it's a great opportunity where you can actually think further outside of your geographic location. And we've seen that so much with the student work placement program, where employers, because of the pandemic, and we could work from home and we could hire our students remotely, employers from the GTA were hiring from University of BC and other sides of the country. And you can continue to do that if you're able to. I mean, obviously there's some roles you can't, manufacturing, laboratory, you have to be in person on site, but you can really get creative with where and who and how you bring on your talent, and it gives you access to a great pool, and that actually touches on the diversity piece right there.
Tell my clients that.
They
want to see you there.
And I was just going to add to that, I think even those roles that are in person on site, like we did an evaluation to understand, is there ability to have some flex in that work? I mean, you're working in the lab, you've got data entry, you've got research. So understanding that some parts of the role can be done from home to make sure that you are able to still keep that group engaged. And yeah.
We forgot to mention compensation. Right? Angela, what do you think about the compensation piece? It's not just, well, it's not just the money, right? It's other intrinsic things that you can add. Like working from home, you've got the bonuses. What other things have you seen?
Well, I think post-COVID, we're now a few years post-COVID, and we're seeing more. I see more headlines in the news, basically, that employers are really trying to bring people back. And I think that it's at this stage, post-COVID, we're entering into another sort of phase of what that looks like. And many organizations are mandating, a minimum of 3 days per week at home. And I think as talent, it is time to consider being open. You can't discount the spontaneous conversations that you have going up an elevator with someone or making a coffee with someone. Those are things that we lost through the pandemic whenever we were 100% virtual. And so it's finding that healthy balance for employers. But I think what's changed a lot is how employers are building meaningful moments so that employees are feeling that, well, hey, I can do this work from home. Why do I need to come into the office? They're saying, I'm coming into the office because I know I am going to have a meaningful moment, whether it's with my team or my manager or an employee appreciation event that might be happening. I think more employers are creating that space so that we're bringing everyone together, because we do collaborate differently face to face. But recognizing too that employees, especially as Ange, you have said several times, the health and well-being is very, very important for employees today too. So how do we enable them to have a different balance than what they had pre-COVID, but is more aligned to where we also need the business to move today? Which is a better balance of in office and working from home, so that employees can manage their own health or family commitments differently than what they did pre-COVID.
There's one thing I want to share, and I think it's important, is that when you're negotiating with a potential employer and they're asking you to come into the office and you're pushing back, you've got to be mindful of the balance there, because then you're perceived as not being negotiable or collaborative. So, at least get your foot in the door, see how things run, because what I'm experiencing is that clients are saying, okay, we want people in the office 3 to 4 days a week. And then a few months go by, and then it could be 2 days a week. So just make sure that you're very negotiable, is what I would suggest.
Yeah, but I would also say to you as a candidate is read the job posting properly. Read it thoroughly, because if the job posting says, we expect you to be in the office 3 days a week, don't apply, because employers that's exactly what they are expecting today. So I would also say, rather than go down that journey to come into some friction through the negotiation process, before you apply, make sure you can commit, because employers are being explicit of what they can offer today. And if they're offering full remote, perfect. That's a perfect job for you if you want to work full remote. But don't apply unless you can make that commitment to work in whatever model the business is looking for today. And as as Ange says, be graceful through any of your conversations, because because you may be able to come to a balance with what you need and what the employer needs, unless they're being explicit that the role's 3 days a week. You're not going to come in 1 day a week if they've said 3 days a week. That's not going to happen. Not today.
Just one quick point on that too is I'm in sales, right? So you have to sell the benefit, and there's a benefit on both sides, because I sit between the talent and the employer side. So I listen to a lot of conversations, but there is a huge benefit to the hybrid workplace, because during the pandemic, I'm sure a lot of us felt this, and our young talent did as well. Yes, you didn't have the spontaneous conversations, very important to build company culture, as you know, but you also had inbox overload and a tendency to work way more hours than you needed to. So depending on which side of the coin you're on, sell the benefit to your team, or sell the benefit to yourself, or to your, to your employer, that the working from home is a great point. So you can do the handiwork, do the data admin, but you're the tendency to get overloaded with that workload and then start to drown in your workload. So going back to have work and have those spontaneous conversations aren't actually negative things. I'm sure we've all felt this since the pandemic shifted back to the workplace. Oh, when we go to work, it's very busy and I don't have time to do my work because I'm talking to all my colleagues. Well, actually, that's a good thing for your mental health, right? So you have to kind of see, who are you selling it to? What is the benefit that you're selling? Are you selling it to your employees or to your employer? But you do need to have a balance of both to get that work-life balance.
I think that's great. And I think we talked a lot about building those meaningful moments to kind of emphasize engagement, which leads me into my next question about how we can proactively cultivate inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility to ensure that all employees feel valued, respected, and have equal opportunities for growth and success.
I think one of the things that's very critical is do not reward bad behavior, right? Sometimes in an organization, there's some bad behavior, and because there's no accountability, it continues. I could give you a little bit of a story. I have a friend, she's an equity consultant, and she had a client who was sexually harassed by the chairperson of the board, and she was told, "Don't worry about it. Their time is ending," and that was their resolve. That's not taking accountability. So I think accountability is very critical. I think one of the things that organizations can do to make DEI successful is building relationships with communities with marginalized and racialized individuals. So at Brunel, we work with, I serve on the board along with Jen, with Women's Leaders in Pharma. It's also a great opportunity for networking for those of you who want to build your skill sets, because when you're looking for a job, the best thing to do is to build trust with other individuals, and what a better way than joining LSO, BioTalent Canada, Women's Leaders in Pharma, organizations like that. I'm also one of the founding members of an organization called Advancing Black Talent in Pharma. And so, you know, and like I said, there's Angelina Pun's organization with the youth, the My Next program. Another thing that's important would be ensure that the mentorship program is one that you could be proactive throughout the entire journey. So diversity and inclusion is just a framework for equity, right? Just because you have members of the population that is diverse doesn't mean that it's equitable. So what practices are you ensuring that it's an equitable environment? And so you need to work with that person, you know, to your point, from the onboarding straight through their career, doing succession planning, career development, and things like that. You know, establish KPI, key performance metrics. In this space, it's very difficult. It's not difficult, it's just that we don't do it, right? And you need to have data, and you need to have measurements. I could go on, but I'm just going to mention one more point, and then I will let my colleagues respond. I think it's important to have very inclusive language in your job descriptions. Critical. We had a situation whereby a client had given us a job description. My recruiter posted it on LinkedIn, and the job description said you have to have Canadian experience. So that set off an alarm with an individual. There are times where you need to have experience in the province. You need to have experience with the key opinion leaders in certain centers of influence. So say that instead. So instead of saying you have to have Canadian experience, you could say something along the lines of you need to have established relationships with the key opinion leaders in Quebec City or in Ontario, something like that. Communication. So the language is really imperative when creating your job description. I was actually glad we got called out on it because it was a learning moment. But yeah, you never know your audience. Sometimes people won't say anything to you, and then your brand is not looking so good. Yeah. Anybody else? And Angela?
So I think inclusion and diversity, it's absolutely, I think it really actually does start with the job posting for new entrants coming into an organization. But then I also think that as an organization, once employees are inside, it's like, how are you creating that psychological trust so that people feel that they can bring forward any challenges that they're having or what have you. And so having employee resource groups is one way to do that, so that there could be some informal mentors or people that might have faced similar struggles or have similar context to what their backgrounds might be, how they've navigated any challenges that they've had, but also the employer doing frequent surveys to understand how people are feeling so that employees have a vehicle of a voice. Not all employees are open to having a conversation. Some of them want to write think their thoughts down because they're just not comfortable in a conversation. So how do you create ambassadors within your organization and how do you create opportunities for employees to share their voices so that they are heard and feel that they belong. But I also think too, as an organization outside of that, it's celebrating the different, and without doing lip service to it, but truly celebrating the different events that are happening on a calendar year. You know, whether I know June is not necessarily Pride Month, but we seem to recognize Pride in June. How do we do that beyond June? You know, so that Pride doesn't seem to be just a flavor of the month per se, you know, but how are we pulling that through all of our sort of corporate communications too, so that we can better build that psychological trust, because that's going to attract a diverse, even more diverse talent pool to the organization, because again, referrals are out there. And so if someone is feeling really, really good and they're you know, they're feeling included, they're feeling that their colleagues are diverse, they're going to communicate that, and that's going to attract even more diverse talent. So I think that's what organizations can do. And Katie, I'll pull it over to you because I know that you're the people and culture at your company. What do you do at Vive?
I mean, I think it starts from, like you said, the job posting and making sure that your language is diverse and equity friendly, inclusive. I wouldn't say we do anything specifically, but again, it's just making sure that all of your policies and your norms, and you're open to just embracing the diverse opinions of the different people that you work with. So I wouldn't say we have any specific initiatives in place, but we do have a very diverse workforce, and not once have we received feedback that they don't feel, you know, included and thought in the workplace. So, yeah.
I could just make one more comment, and she talked about Pride Week and things like that. I think it's important to recognize and acknowledge those on the ERG groups, because what happens a lot of time is people who share, they have a commonality, they're put in a group, and then they don't really have any power and they're not really incentivized. So we really need the leaders to sponsor the ERG group, but also incentivize those who are participating in the ERG group, whether that is, you know, developing some kind of career path or some kind of acknowledgement. So that's something that I would suggest. ERG. Employee Resource Group. Sorry. I'm glad you asked.
I think that was a great kind of wrap up to all the points that we spoke to today. And I think kind of the final food for thought we could leave people with is, what is your advice for new graduates entering the life sciences field who are unsure of their options out there?
I guess my big message is to get creative for anybody who's looking to take on a role. You know, may not have the experience, you may not be a barista, but you make really great coffees for all your friends. So get creative and ask the employers, what are you looking for? How are these skills going to apply to those jobs? Make sure, really simple things, is make sure your cover letter and resume touch on all the points that are in that job description. And if you feel like that job title is not a great fit because it's, you know, 20 years old, ask the questions, reach out. As we've said before, there's LinkedIn, there's lots of other ways of networking, and employers actually encourage that and are open to those kinds of conversations. I've heard that from many employers all across Canada, is just reach out, ask questions, be creative, don't sit inside your box.
I think we've spoke to just being open to different career paths and different opportunities within your career. So I think it's, as you're going out there, like, don't put yourself in a box of like, here's where I want to work and only here. I think it's just being open to various opportunities. And if the title of the role doesn't fit what you're looking for, look at the actual scope of the role and what is it that you're actually doing, and get curious about that.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, really, really look at what your transferable skills are. Joanne had mentioned, you know, maybe you're a barista at Starbucks or another coffee shop. There is significant team collaboration there. You need to work together to be successful, and you're managing like a high volume, high paced organization at Starbucks. Like, and so how do you play such a huge part in having the customers come back, you know, day after day after day. So, you know, how are you interacting with your team? How are you interacting with your customers and creating that awesome customer experience? How are you managing the demand? you know, because there's time management involved with that. It's almost like a project that you have to pull through, especially depending on the drink that's being made, you know. Like, you know, it's not just a black coffee out of it, you know, it's not. There's a lot that happens there. And so I would really, really dig into what your transferable skills are. And then I would really practice responding to top interview questions. Say them out loud. Don't say them in your head, because we all sound phenomenal whenever we talk to ourselves silently, right? But then we stumble over ourselves whenever we try to verbalize it. So practice that, not so that you sound polished, but so that you're practice and you can speak to who you are as an individual. And make sure your personality is coming through. Don't leave your smile at the door. Have it on your face the whole time, because they want to know who you are. It'll make you feel better, and you'll probably be more at your best. And don't be afraid to, like, as we said before, network, reach out all of the time. I really hate this analogy, but I think it's apt. You know, finding a role can be like dating, and you're going to be turned down a lot, and that's okay. You know, and some of your conversations are going to be amazing and some of them are not. You know, timing may not be right for the organization that's looking to hire you, but you're going to leave an impression. And so they might need a role in 6 months, they might need a role in 18 months, and they're going to be like, you know what, I had a really great conversation with that person. I'm going to see what they're doing today. You know, don't be afraid of those reach outs. And the final thing I would leave you with is that every conversation you have is an interview. So, you know, and that stems from high school, working on group projects and what have you. Like, everyone is a potential referral, you know, someone that can help you get in the door, whether they're a hiring manager or, you know, as I said, someone that can refer you. So keep that in mind, that every conversation is an interview, and you never know what kind of impression you're going to leave.
Well, I hope I left a good impression on you. I would just encourage you all to be bold, be brave, walk in your power, whether you're young in your career or mature in your career. Continue to do that networking piece. How do you network? Well, you leverage your LinkedIn, send out a request, say to that person, I always make it my intention to get to know those who I am connected with on LinkedIn. I would like the opportunity to chat with you. It's a numbers game. They may respond, they may not respond. If you see a post on LinkedIn that, you know, Sarah might have posted or Jason might have posted, engage in the conversation on LinkedIn, right? Understand what your value proposition is. When you are going into an environment, what makes you unique? Everybody is different. Everybody has different skill sets, but what makes you unique? Really understand what your value proposition is what I would encourage you to, you know, really think about it, make it more granular. You are a brand, right? I have this big blonde curly hair. Everybody knows Angelina because of the big blonde curly hair, but hopefully they know me because of my brain too. But understand what your brand is. Join organizations such as Life Science Ontario, BioTalent Canada, Women's Leaders in Pharma. It gives you an opportunity to network. And like Angela said, every conversation you have is an interview, right? And you're building trust. And please know that you do possess all the skill sets that clients need. If you are very collaborative, critical thinking, right? How do you pivot? Many of us had to pivot during COVID. If you're new to Canada, my goodness gracious, you had to really leverage some of your skills, right? To move over on this side of the planet. So I would just encourage you, whether it's having affirmations in the morning, I know it sounds a little fluffy, but you need to have a conversation with yourself. Don't have imposter syndrome, because that will paralyze you, right? So that's my last 2 cents. Thank you.
That was great. And I can affirm that affirmations are great as well. Yeah, I think that was a great closing, and I'd like to extend my gratitude to the esteemed panelists for generously sharing your experiences and knowledge. I hope that everyone found this panel as insightful and informative as I did, and I'm going to pass it back to Jason now for some closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Simone, and please join me in acknowledging this amazing panel and our amazing moderator this morning. That was really fantastic. You were insightful, you were engaging, you were funny. We're going to have you back. So a few quick announcements just before we wrap up. We do have more of these breakfast meetings coming up. Our next one is going to be on February 27th. It's going to be a really interesting one, actually. Well, they're all interesting, but this one's particularly interesting as well. So some of you might have read in the papers ongoing debate with our federal government around the role of pension funds investing in Canadian innovation. Well, we're actually going to have some representatives from pension funds as well as investors talking about both sides of this debate that's happening at a national level right now. So it should be an interesting, maybe a somewhat spicy conversation as well. So please mark that one in your calendar. It is membership renewal time. Thank you. Well, Angelina, I was going to say thank you because you gave us a plug there about joining LSO about at least 3 times. So thank you for that. So sign up. You can sign up online. You can connect with Andy or Brian or any of the team at LSO. Our scholarship program, and you know, what a great ambassador we have for our scholarship program with Simone right there. This program has been so important for us on a number of levels in terms of promoting awareness of opportunities within the life sciences industry and the diverse opportunities. We do track diversity metrics as well, and we're really proud that we're giving opportunities to a diverse group of students from across Ontario, colleges and universities. This is a fully member-funded program, so if you're interested in supporting, we have multiple different levels to support this program. You don't have to be, you know, a big pharma company to support it. If you do have an organization that's interested, please do reach out and let us know. Our largest event of the year is our annual awards gala, and that is happening on May 15th. We are honoring some fantastic award recipients this year, and we've already sold how many? Over 300 tickets already have been sold. We typically expect about 500, 550. It is at the Liberty Grand, fantastic event. Again, you can get your tickets online. And, oh, geez, I mean, is it golf season already? We're in January. Without the snow, it kind of feels it. We do host a golf tournament every year, and we will be hosting again in August at Lionhead. We actually outgrew our previous venue at Copper Creek. Lionhead actually has 2 courses now, opportunities to sponsor, to participate. And if you don't golf, that's okay. You can come out and join us for the networking luncheon, or we are also planning to host a Learn to Golf event ahead of time, a great networking opportunity. It's less about the golf, it's more about the networking, getting to know your colleagues, getting outdoors, having some fun. It's just a great opportunity for some meaningful interaction. I like that framing. Finally, I want to say thank you to our sponsors. We could not host events like this without the support of our platinum sponsors shown here, as well as our gold sponsors and our silver sponsors. So please join me in thanking all of our supporters. And finally, a special thanks to today's sponsors, Northeastern University and Marsh. Representatives from those organizations are here, so please stick around. We have some time afterwards, so if you want to stick around network, please feel free to do so. There's probably coffee and breakfast left over. Grab whatever you like there. We can't take it home with us, so you can take it home with you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.